Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Between Realities VR podcast. Oh, wait a second.
It's funny because we have an echo button.
Yeah, I know. And all of a sudden I was like saying words that taken out of context maybe wouldn't be great. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm Alex. I am one half of Between Realities. And
hey, I'm Skiva.
Oh, and that's Skiva, and he is the other half Between Realities. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
That's good.
What a great... You know, I always say it. Great time for VR. There's so much stuff happening. There's headsets coming out. There's games coming out. It's just such a good time. I can barely contain my excitement like every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And I mean, I don't know if this is something that you want to mention. Stop me. But today is
today. Well, and this is pre-recorded.
It is so.
But yeah, today is actually my last. Yesterday was my last day at Vertigo Games, and today's my first day full time with Impact Reality.
Congratulations!
So, thank you so much, man. You know, I love Vertigo Games so much. They make one of my favorite games after the fall. Love Arizona Sunshine. I love everything they do. The people there are phenomenal. Such an awesome studio. You know, ultimately, I want to help all of VR and not just one studio.
Yeah.
Although, you know, but I love them and I appreciate everything they've ever done for me. So thank you, Vertigo. Love you guys. But yeah, check out Impact Reality as well. But yeah, so
it's
that's
not a bad line item on a resume.
Yeah, right.
You know, and be like, oh yeah, Vertigo Games back there. Yeah, I did some work with Vertigo Games. Oh, you know, after the fall. Yeah, you know that one. So, yeah, it's really awesome, man. It's exciting. You know, I'm excited to see the next step in the evolution of Impact Reality. And it's like sometimes you have to take that step, you know, close the door behind you kind of situation.
Oh, absolutely.
That's where we're at.
Absolutely.
Well, Skiva just mentioned the show is pre-recorded, right? So you'll be catching this in between our typical live Friday episodes, actually, because it's also a bonus episode.
It is, and this one was just too awesome to not do.
Yeah.
Even though we had our shows booked to the end of the season, we just absolutely had to get this in because, you know, it's up there with one of my favorite VR games ever. Like, I really like this game.
Yeah, this is going to be...
I'm excited to talk about it.
This is going to be awesome. You know, hey, shout out, by the way, to anybody watching the premiere live. We're in the chat. We're all having a good time, right? We have our regulars and our usuals. I can already feel you guys, even though this episode is not live. It feels like it could be. I can feel your energies. So thank you guys for watching. And you might be catching it on Spotify, right? Or iTunes, or wherever you like podcasts. That's cool. You know, but YouTube is the spot. Just for the record, y'all. Like,
yeah, you can't see our beautiful spaceship if you don't watch it on YouTube. Well, actually, you can, because now we were pre-approved for Anchor and Spotify's video podcast, which
there you go.
Which is great. There's not a whole lot of them, so watch it. Yeah,
unless you're driving, don't watch it.
Yeah, don't do that.
Okay, don't do that. But yeah, thank you guys, and shout out to the Patreons, shout out to the channel members. Without your guys' support, this would be a lot less cool. But because you support us, we can get cooler things, and things get cooler. So thank you guys all so much for being a part. Oh yeah, it's cool, man. It's super, super cool. So what else is cool is feeling like a superhero. You know, that's one of the things that VR is really all about. Right? Like, you get superpowers and you can do things that you're not typically able to do.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes games happen with like huge IPs of actual superheroes, you know, well, actual real known Marvel, you know, superheroes. Iron Man superheroes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, it takes superheroes themselves to bring some of these experiences to us. You know, VR is, as all of you guys know, it can be very niche. It hasn't reached like that insane mass adoption rate. So you're not always sure if you're going to be able to get these like crazy awesome IPs involved with the games, but some people out there are working magic. And one of those people has joined us today. He is the founder and studio director at Camouflaj, a studio that we are all quite familiar with.
Yes.
And he's here with us right now, and his name is Ryan Payton. Hello, Mr. Ryan. Thank you for joining us, man.
Hey, Alex. Hey, Skiva. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here.
A pleasure and an honor. Yeah, I feel like Camouflaj is just known for putting out quality stuff. I mean, stop me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like Camouflaj is known for putting out good stuff. I'm sure you must be proud of the studio's accomplishments so far.
Yeah, I did. That was a big part of the vision of the studio when I started it 11, 12 years ago. And yeah, I'm sure we'll get into it, but with the release of Marvel's Iron Man VR on Quest 2 in November last year, I think that was an opportunity for us to, put the game into front of more people, and just seeing the response that we got and the reviews and everything was like a real good jolt for the team to kind of show them that yes, we talk about making a lot of high quality stuff, but then at the end of the day, it really matters what the public thinks about it, and that was a really good vindication for us because at the end of the day, it's ultimately all about making quality, meaningful games.
Right. Well, the proof is in the pudding, man. Like people who played this game, they have nothing but great things to say about it. You know?
On either platform, because this came out originally on PSVR, which is where I played it my first playthrough, right? And this was one of those games where everyone was talking about how this was the first studio to really nail the tracking system, right? Because there were always, some issues with the light-based tracking system on the PSVR 1. Yeah. And when you put the cameras out of view, things went a little wonky. But everyone said that Camouflaj was able to conjure up some crazy voodoo or something to make this work as well as it did. And then it came to the Quest 2, and it was an even better experience. Higher resolution, better tracking. Like it was like, I feel like this is where this game was meant to be.
Wow. All right. Listen, I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves here. This is exciting. Like I want to learn I want to learn all about this, right? And I definitely want to get Ryan's perspective. But I kind of want to start with you a little bit, Ryan. You started Camouflaj 10, 11 years ago. You just mentioned, which I didn't even know the studio's been around that long. Like that's amazing. But you've been in the games industry for quite a while, and I was creeping on you a little bit, and I noticed that you have been involved in some pretty high profile projects, if I may say so. So do you want to give us a little bit of like a quick little history of your involvement in the gaming industry?
Sure, I'll try to keep it high level, and then if you want to drill down in any of these moments in my career, I'm more than happy to. But I started off as a journalist for games, and I've loved games my whole life, and really wanted to work on games, but I didn't really have a path there immediately. So ended up writing for video game magazines that I'm sure probably some of your viewers and listeners may remember from back in the day, like EGM. I was writing for OneUp.com. Wired magazine, and eventually, I was based in Japan actually at the time, so I was writing for a newspaper out of here called the Japan Times. But I was able to parlay that into a job at Konami, working on Metal Gear Solid 4 primarily, and as a producer, as an entry level producer, and had a lot of success there. I was really, really lucky. So, your first video game job was working on Metal Gear at Kojima Productions in Japan.
Wow.
Living a very charmed life.
Okay, we can pump the brakes there for a quick second. Sure. So you were a producer on the project. Like, what kind of contributions do you make as a producer on a video game?
Yeah, so the way the kind of setup was, I had an interview appointment with Hideo Kojima for Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. As a journalist, and after the interview, he asked me to come in and work for him or interview for a job. And so I was kind of from the very beginning helping kind of coordinate between Konami Japan, Europe, United States, translating emails back and forth, work kind of coordinating key art, anything and everything that needed to be done. I was willing to do it because I'm entry level producer and super excited. I love Metal Gear, so it was kind of a dream come true. But as a producer and shifting my focus towards, as I'm learning more about the game, is like, how do you make a great game? How do you deliver that? How do you work with a team? And I put my fingers in all sorts of pies, and they were super cool with letting me do that. And in a very fast, short time of a span of time, about 3 years, I went from translating emails to giving a lot of direction to the team for Metal Gear Solid 4. Which was an absolute honor to be able to do.
Wow. I love the Metal Gear series. Yeah, I really do. I love Konami. I love Hideo Kojima. So this is all very nostalgic for me. I started on Metal Gear Solid 2 and have played, I think, all of them. And really enjoy that series. So
that's great.
Great work with your contributions.
You were living in Japan, and one of the reasons why we've done a pre-recorded episode today is because we needed to time things out because you're still in Japan, right? That's right. That's pretty amazing.
Well, as part of my story, I actually ended up returning to Japan, but there was about a 13, 14 year hiatus.
What took you out there initially?
I was just talking to a guy about this the other day about how he went to a Japanese gentleman who went to school here in Japan, went to college, and was studying English. And I said, okay, let's speak in English. And he's like, it's been many years, man. And he's like, I really regret not using it. I'm like, yeah, that's where I was when I graduated from college. I wanted to be, especially back where like in the age that I grew up. A lot of the messaging, if you wanted to work in video games, is you had to have like a computer science major. You needed to be able to program.
Yep.
And so I went to school for that, and I did very, very poorly. I was like very, very close to getting kicked out of school because my grades in computer science were so bad. And I remember my dad looking at my transcript and saying, "Yeah, Ryan, some people are good at some things, and some people are just not good at some things. And you're just not good at computer science and math. Like you just need to accept that." But look at your Japanese, your Chinese, your business grades, not so bad, right? So I ended up graduating with like kind of a mixed degree, and I thought, look, if I don't move to Japan and or China and use these language skills, I'm going to forget them. Like this guy that I met recently, and I'm glad I did. It took me on a very wayward path. Where my first night in Japan, I just broke down and cried, thinking I made the huge mistake, like one of the biggest mistakes of my life. But as you know, and I'm sure for both of you guys, for both you, Alex and Skiva, like sometimes some of the harder parts of your life, it leads you to bigger and better things. You just don't realize it at the time. And it turns out that taking a job teaching English in a fishing village in very rural Japan ended up being a really good step forward for my path in my eventual dream to become a video game developer.
Wow. It's like, it sounds like if this village didn't have video games in it. Like a fishing village.
The only video games that were going on was at my place.
Wow, man, that's really awesome.
That is. What an amazing story. It's hard to just move states, never mind moving to the other side of the globe with language barriers, cultural barriers, all of these things, right? That's very inspiring to hear that, people go out there and they chase their dreams. And that's great.
So that somehow you get involved with Metal Gear, which is amazing. Is there anything like in Metal Gear Solid 4 that you can like point people to and you're like, yeah, you see that part of that scene or whatever? That's me right there. Just for the record, that's me.
I could literally, Alex, I could literally do that. There's a scene in Act 3, which is based on a research trip that we did to Prague. And the opening scene when Snake arrives at the train station, there's some pedestrians in the background, and I can pause the game and literally point to me. They scanned me and put me
you are actually in it.
Whoa.
So that was kind of fun. So I could point to that. But I mean, there's it's been a long time since I've worked on that game, and so I'm sure I've forgotten many things. But I was primarily focused on a lot of game balance and just anything and everything. I would just play the game every day and give a lot of feedback. Actually, but that was such a major production. I mean, at peak, we had 250 people on that game. Such a highly anticipated title, a real flagship title for PlayStation 3. Yeah. And we just put anything and everything we could into that title. For me, the kind of turning point for my career early on was my contributions to another Metal Gear game, while we're also developing MGS4, which is a game for PSP called Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops. And that is the game that put my career on a rocket ship, basically. Long story short, super, super truncated development. I mean, we built that game from start till finish within 1 year. And with the team about 20, maybe 30 at peak. And that game had a lot of ups and downs, and they gave me an opportunity to jump in there and really help that project. So my fingerprints are all over that title, and I'm super proud of it.
Wow, that just took me back again in time. I remember sitting there with my PSP in hand playing that game.
Wow.
Yeah,
nice.
I loved that game.
The Wi-Fi kind of scanning so you could recruit other soldiers.
Yeah, they had some really cool features. I was like, it had mechanics in it that weren't typical of other Metal Gear Solid games, right? And I thought it was great. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, it's a gem. Eventually that game would be, I think, surpassed by Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker on PSP. They had a massive team on it. They just blew out the scope. But we kind of laid the foundation for a lot of Peace Walker in Portable Ops. really proud of that game. And again, the fact that that team built that game in like about 10 or 11 months still to this day blows my mind.
That's a short cycle for any game ever.
Yeah, it is.
You know, like,
it really is.
That is such a short cycle. And the PlayStation Portable was such an interesting console. Like, I didn't have one growing up, you know, or like when it was relevant, I guess I should say. But I recently acquired one from like a family friend. They're like, hey, you want some video games? I'm like, yeah, sure. And in the box is a PSP and a bunch of games in it. Metal Gear is not in there, unfortunately. But what is in there is like 15 to 20 movies. This is like before cell phones as we know them today. So like if you wanted to watch a movie on the go, you were watching on your PSP. Like that's just so awesome.
I remember, man. Wow, those were the days. Yeah, days of portables.
Those were the days.
That was the golden age of portables, honestly. Like PSP, like DS, like 3DS even. Yeah, gosh, I love those consoles.
Amazing.
Okay, so awesome. So you get involved in these Metal Gear Solid projects. You're not done now at this point. Like you've got other really awesome projects that you have participated in and been a huge part of before getting to Camouflaj, right?
You're right. And I shipped Metal Gear Solid 4. It took everything out of me, including the rest of the team. You know, we're just exhausted by the end of that title. And I had a long vacation, kind of built on and accumulated from all the overtime and weekends I'd worked. And went home to Washington State, kind of Seattle area, and I was spending time with my folks, my brother, and it's again kind of the weird way that life works. I was getting weird phone calls from the hospital from my mom, and then it was my first week back, I think, and I'm catching up all these video games I haven't played for that I missed while I was working on Metal Gear. And she sits the family down and says that she's been diagnosed with breast cancer, and things are gonna get pretty hard, but she's gonna fight through it. But my dad was still working, and he pulled me aside. He's like, I think you need to come back so we can all take care of mom together. And so it was a pretty easy decision to make, even though I was working in some regards on at my dream job, right? And I was excited about what was next for the company. Thankfully, my mom, cancer survivor, is still doing well, but that was a scary time. And I went back to Japan. I told Hideo, and he was very supportive. And he's like, "Yeah, thanks for your contributions. I wish we could have worked for many, many more years, but he got it." And then. Yeah, so I moved back and then started interviewing for a job more locally. And I interviewed a lot of places, and one of them was at the new Halo studio that Microsoft was starting, 343. They had maybe 10, 11, 12 employees there. And another long story short, I ended up getting a job offer to be creative director there, which very quickly led to me becoming creative director on Halo 4, the first kind of major Halo title out of that new 343 Industries studio.
Wow.
Like, dude, you got a pretty good track record going at this point, man. Like,
well, just wait, Alex. It gets I don't know, it gets kind of bad, but so far things are going really good for me.
So far things are going good. You're creative director on Halo 4, the first game put out by the new Halo Studios. What kind of contributions as a creative director now are you making?
I look at this as a once in a lifetime opportunity in a lot of ways. And at the time too, to give myself a little bit of credit, even though I'm 26, 27 at the time, I understand just how special and unusual it is for somebody like me that while I was doing some creative direction on Metal Gear, I wasn't directing a whole title from soup to nuts. And yet here I am being tasked to do that for one of the biggest franchises in gaming, and especially at that time when Halo was really at its peak. Yeah. I took that job very seriously and worked my butt off. I'm a hard worker no matter what, but wake up as early as I possibly can force myself to wake up, and working as late as I possibly could, just so dedicated to the project, so obsessed with it, and working with Frank O'Connor and other folks to come up with a story, working with the designers like Scott Warner and others to come up with the design of the game. Those Halo titles are massive, and I put a lot of myself into that title.
Wow, that's amazing. So in these kind of roles that you've had at these studios, you're able to like make contributions in a lot of different areas. Like you're contributing to story and like maybe the gameplay and like other aspects and like environment, aesthetics and things like that. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny if you look at and you zoom out at all the creative directors in the games industry. I found over the years that they kind of fall into a number of different buckets, kind of depending on their background. So if you take the BioShock series, for example, Ken Levine, former screenwriter. So his focus, obviously he contributes a lot to design, art, audio, but his kind of bread and butter is on the narrative design. How do you mix in great story with great mechanics? If you look at Marcus Lato, who was a creative director on Halo Reach, former art director. So a lot of his major kind of obsessions and contributions and irrational passions are on more on the art side than they might have been on design or story. And so for me, I was really utilizing my background again in kind of narrative. And so I was kind of, again, more of like, I kind of try to follow the Ken Levine path of writing and design. And so most of my contributions, less on like the art side, for example, would be on what the mission layout is, what the moment-to-moment beats are, and ultimately like what kind of story, what kind of experience do we want the player to have. And working with Frank, it was really clear that we want to tell a really hard-hitting story about Master Chief and Cortana. And I think. By the way, I didn't ship that title, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I've played it, obviously, and I'm really proud of what the team was able to accomplish. But that was really part of the initial idea, and we really focused on that.
Man, that's so cool. It's like such an awesome job, like being able really to like make the game without having to code it. Know, like that's like my thoughts of getting involved in the games industry is I thought I was going to have to be a programmer. So I start trying to learn it and it's like, oh, wait a second, this is really, really hard. Maybe someone can just ask me what I want a game to look like and do and sound like and all of that. And then it happens. Like that would be pretty cool. And it sounds like that's kind of what your roles have been like at these amazingly huge, super famous games.
Yeah, this is actually, I think, a nice segue into some of the struggles that I had at Microsoft and at 343 was that, so I'm coming from Japan, in which we have a very top-down, very strong director type in Hideo Kojima, right? And we didn't follow all of his directives, but we followed the vast majority of them because that's kind of the way that the company is structured. It's a little more the way that games are built in Japan, or at least traditionally. And that's all I really knew. So I kind of brought that with me thinking, okay, I'm going to weave this amazing tale and here's the vision. Here are the pillars. Here's a design document with all the details. All right, guys, let's go build this thing. And then I look behind me and there's like 3 people following me in this path. I'm thinking, is it because it's a bad idea or is it what's going on here? And I had to really quickly learn that, at least in the West, I think the leadership is not necessarily just do what I say and follow this direction. So much of it is about influence. And rallying people and understanding what they want to do and trying to find that commonality of like, okay, you guys are excited about all this stuff. I'm excited about all these other things too, but we have in the Venn diagram, we've got a nice overlap. Now, in retrospect, that's what I should have focused on and really rally the team so everybody feels like they're part of the process. They're bought in. Because I think I found that to be much more effective. But at the time, I didn't have those tools in my toolbox, and so I did struggle to get buy-in on things. So yeah, Alex, like I think at the beginning of my time at 343, I was thinking, this is gonna be awesome. I just kind of just get this thing out and paint this picture, and we'll go and build it. But it ended up being a lot harder, which eventually led to my demotion from creative director to narrative designer on the title, and then eventually being asked to leave before the game shipped, which was. At the time, at least, the worst and hardest day of my career.
Oof, I can only imagine, dude. Wow. I'm sure that hit pretty hard. Yeah. You're there making contributions, like you were doing stuff the whole time you were there.
Working hard, getting up early, going to bed late, working and grinding and making something that you thought was, the best thing. It's like your baby, right? I mean, you helped so much to make this thing. So how did that
I put so much into it?
Yeah. So then how does that lead to where we are today? What's the next step?
So I'm sitting there and thinking, this is, I don't know where I go from here. Yeah, I put so much into this game. I work so hard. Like, this isn't fair. And it took me a number of years for me to realize that, yeah, I wasn't the best creative director, even though I still believe in very much of what I laid out, and what the team eventually built was very similar to what they ended up shipping. But I just didn't have the enough experience, I think, in terms of leadership, in terms of direction, in terms of just how games are built, because I was so young, right? And it took me a while to kind of come around and reconnect with some of the leadership at 343, and we're all friends now. But there was a couple of years where I felt really betrayed and angry. Yeah. But now I see that, like, I probably would have made the same decision if I was my boss, right, back in 2011. And so, but yeah, that led me directly to, okay, I've got some Microsoft stock now. I've got some money in the bank. I'm doing pretty well financially at the time. So I decide, hey, I'm just going to use this money, and I'm going to show these people that I do know how to make a great game, and I could do it without constraints by starting my own company, Camouflage. And here's my first game, working with this crazy crew of fairly inexperienced developers. So we started this game called Republique. And that game took a lot out of me as well. But we're talking about 5 years of end-to-end development, in which I was kind of forced to learn every single step along the way. Because if you look at my career up until now, I've been standing on the shoulders of giants. You know, I joined Metal Gear on Metal Gear Solid 4. This team has already shipped many Metal Gear titles. The tech is there. The fan base is there. Halo is the same thing, right? And now, new IP, no established team, no established tech. I mean, it was video game development on hard mode, and we had our fair share of ups and downs.
Wow. So this game, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember this game coming out. I think it came out first on Steam, and then did it come to Oculus Go?
Yeah. We would run out of time if I listed up all the platforms that it actually came to, but started off as a mobile title, as iOS. We did a Kickstarter, soon brought it to Steam, and then PlayStation 4 once all the 5 episodes were done, and then that led us to our first business relationship with Oculus, which become Meta, right? But and they worked with us to bring Republic to Gear VR and Oculus Go, and that was our first foray into VR, and we had an absolute blast.
Wow. So initially a mobile game ends up being like a PC console game, and everybody still loves it, which is amazing. Like, I don't know, I feel like people like talk smack about mobile gaming for the most part, you know, like obviously there's a lot of mobile games out there that
back
make
in the day.
an insane amount of money. Like some of them just make so much money. It's crazy. You know, but like I personally don't play a ton of mobile games, you know. There might be like one that I pick up every now and then, but in terms of like a full blown, like I'm going to play this whole game kind of game, it's very, very rare.
Yeah. And it's wild because everyone has a phone in their pocket, and not everyone has a console or a PC. Right. But if there's a game available on the App Store somewhere, whether it be iOS or Android, you know, Google Play or whatever, then it's accessible to people, right? People can grab it. They can play it on their way to work. They don't have to sit there in front of the TV and play. So this is a huge piece of gaming, you know, even though like I feel like, you know, me and you don't mobile game much because we have so many amazing consoles and VR devices and
VR devices.
Yeah.
But
why
the vast majority of people on this planet don't play console games, don't play PC games, don't play VR games. They're playing mobile games, and it dwarfs everything else. And I saw that as an opportunity for us to bring a high quality, story driven, episodic stealth action game that you can play with one finger. That was really the design, to take the 18 button required input scheme of Metal Gear Solid and distill it down to one touch on that touchscreen. Massive, one of the hardest design challenges I've ever faced.
Yeah, it's very ambitious.
But you know, because I didn't really like a lot of the mobile titles at the time. Maybe Infinity Blade was pretty cool. This is before Clash of Clans and stuff like this. This is before free to play, and we launched a premium mobile title at the beginning. eventually getting absolutely smashed by free-to-play titles, and they took over and we were left in the dust. But the initial idea was, hey, let's bring kind of a console-like experience to mobile.
Nice. So, and you're out there, you're like, okay, this game is great. We're getting a good reception to it. I've glanced at it. It has great reviews and, people seem to enjoy it. Let's get it on as many different platforms as we can. It's like that, how the initial interest in VR happened, just by like exploring new platforms to get the game to.
Alex, I think I earned my stripes leading Camouflage for 11 years because it was not easy. It was, we frequently ran out of money developing Republique. It was again, an inexperienced team, inexperienced founder and CEO and director, really. And so the game came out, the first episode, global featuring from Apple. You couldn't ask for more support from them. And then look at the sales numbers; they just weren't there. And that was holiday 2013, and that was really what you look back in history as the holiday that free to play took over, in which people realize that they don't have to make a $5 gamble on something they see on the App Store when they have countless titles they can play for free and try them out, and then they eventually get into like that kind of monetization scheme. But so we were kind of left in the dust, really tough, but had to just beg, borrow, and steal to get to be able to fund episodes 2 and then episode 3 and bring it to more platforms and make lots of different deals with Amazon to bring the game to Fire Phone, to work with Unity to help showcase their technology. I mean, just barely made it to episode 5, the final episode, which we brought to PlayStation 4 and then eventually to VR. So the reason why we did VR is, we were interested in VR to begin with. We were fascinated by the technology. We had a DK1 in the office and trying out, like, what happens if you just plug in the DK1 into Unity and play Republic first person in VR? Like, we did all that stuff, I don't know, 2012 or somewhere around that time, 2013 maybe. We didn't do the Republic VR title for with Oculus just out of pure passion for VR. Like, oh, we could expand our user base. We did it because we needed the money.
Yeah.
And it gave me this indication early on, like, these are special people and they treat developers really well. I'd like to work with them sometime in the past, not knowing that, we'll be working very closely in the future. Wow.
So I think we're getting pretty close to present day. Like Iron Man came out on the PlayStation before it came out to the Quest, like Skiva mentioned earlier. Can you get us to where Iron Man starts to become a thing?
Sure. So we shipped Republique in 2016 and worked on a title that was never formally announced or shown. Working with Square Enix, and it was canceled. And it was a battle royale title before battle royale was a thing. One of my greatest, I think, I made a lot of mistakes, guys, and I have a lot. My list of like failures and mistakes are much greater than my accomplishments. But one of my proudest accomplishments was I went to headquarters of Square Enix, wrote up a really quick pitch for what I thought would be a really amazing type of multiplayer game that I just called battle royale because I was inspired by the Japanese film.
I love that movie, by the way.
I had predicted, it was an awesome film. I was like, they got this is the perfect structure for a multiplayer game.
Yep.
Not knowing that was going to become a major genre, but we were working on a battle royale title before H1Z1 or PUBG or any of those games, and it was canceled before any of those games came out. And so that was like, I was really proud of the fact that I kind of predicted or predated battle royale. But at the end of the day, we did make the game, and so that was another tough moment for the team. And so when it was canceled, we had like $30,000 in the bank, a team of 35 people. I didn't know how I was going to make ends meet. One of our early investors called me and said, hey, I'll give you a loan for a few $100,000 to keep the lights on while you go find your next project. And then I just very quickly went into hardcore biz dev mode, traveling the world, which led us to a partnership with Sony and Marvel for Iron Man VR. But that took some months to get together. As you know, these things just don't happen overnight. So meanwhile, the team was working in VR because this VR is just so exciting in 2016 in particular. And so they just made all these cool prototypes and stuff like that. And that led us to show Marvel and Sony that we can execute on a really big and kind of marquee PlayStation VR title that we didn't realize was going to take us about 3.5 years to realize. But yeah, that's what it took.
Wow. So, I mean, Marvel, Iron Man, these are really, really popular IPs. Like Marvel's, I don't know, arguably in the top 5 most popular IPs in the world. When these deals kind of started coming together and you're like, holy crap, I'm sitting across the table from Sony. Oh, and is that Marvel? Yep, it sure is. Were you like already used to like working with like running with the big dogs, so to speak? Or were you like realizing how huge these companies are and like trying to play it cool kind of, you know?
I'm lucky that, my first game job was Metal Gear Solid.
Right.
And, one of the first trailers I worked on was the biggest trailer at E3. And, there's fans everywhere. It's exciting. And then Halo was a huge deal too. So for me, I don't get as maybe as starstruck as maybe I should, just because my early career was being associated with such major franchises. And for me, I was in survival mode too. So I love the Marvel guys that my friend Brian Intihar from Insomniac, the creative director on Spider-Man, introduced me to the guys at Marvel and said that they're looking for VR content, and so I was I was desperate to find our next project, right? But also so enamored by the idea of what would it be like to be Iron Man in VR. It seems like this like a perfect pairing. And I think everybody kind of agreed. The trick, though, and the real challenge, though, was that Marvel understood that as well. And they said, hey, Ryan, no offense, but, we see Camouflaj as a up-and-coming studio. We really like Republique. But you only have 35 people, and Iron Man is kind of our crown jewel for VR. So no offense, but we're probably going to go find a bigger, more established developer to bring Iron Man to VR. No offense, but like, why don't we talk about some other characters or some other IPs? And growing up, like reading a lot of Iron Man, again, just understanding just how perfect Iron Man would be for VR. We made a quick prototype. I went and scrounged up a bunch of like investor money to back the game, and then I created the best pitch I possibly could, and took it all down to LA, put it in front of Marvel, and said, "Hey, I know you said this is going to go to some other bigger studio, but I'm going to prove to you why we can make this great." And it was because of the team's prototype and really the pitch that we put together that really blew them away. And they're like, "Okay," and I got the handshake at the end of that meeting, and the rest is history.
Wow. That's so rad.
Impressive. So did you grow up reading Iron Man comics, or did you watch the movies? What was the game more kind of, what was your influence more based from the movies or the comics? Or
Yeah, for me growing up with comics, I love the films, right? And RDJ as Iron Man is legendary, right? And especially the more towards the end of that with I was along with everybody else with Avengers, with Infinity War and Endgame. But yeah, growing up reading the comics, and I've always been one of those guys that like Metal Gear. I grew up loving Metal Gear. Some kind of fanciful but grounded story. So less about the superpowers and more about heroes that I can relate to that maybe have a special power here or there, but fairly grounded, like Iron Man or like Batman. And so those are mainly the comics that I read growing up. And so it was a natural evolution for me to, I think, to kind of just start thinking about how would that all work and pulling references in there. And then again, the team just putting together this amazing prototype. We hooked up a Vive and just put some thrusters on the player's hands, and thinking this is not going to work because but you guys remember early days of VR, especially.
Oh yeah,
it's still some of it. It's a little bit of unknown territory still. We're still all learning, but especially back there, it's like, how does like locomotion work? What's a compelling experience? What's not going to make people sick? And we had all the reasons on paper why this wouldn't work, but then we're flying around these gray box cityscapes, flying around as Iron Man, shooting stuff, ground pounding, rocket punching enemies, and going, this is amazing. Are we crazy? And we would just bring people in like, no, this is awesome. We would have some people in the industry from larger companies come in and just play the game for hours. And they're like, I'd rather play this gray box than some finished like VR games out there. I think you have something special here, guys. And thankfully, Marvel agreed when they played the prototype.
That's so great. So boom, you get the handshake. Let's start development on Iron Man for PlayStation VR. Had you used a PlayStation VR? And were there some challenges designing for this platform? Because like we just mentioned earlier, like, tracking can be really wonky and weird on that console. And a lot of people who played Iron Man said that for some reason this game worked better than others, you know? So, so what was it like developing for the PlayStation VR, and, you know, what kind of challenges did you have to overcome?
Yeah, there's a kind of a gray, opaque section of my Iron Man VR development story that someday we'll get into. It's not entirely super interesting, but there was a gap of time and work that had to be done from the moment that we started the title to the moment that it became a PlayStation VR title. So we just kind of went headfirst into PC VR mode, just building the game and developing it. And then eventually I was able to work with Sony to explore this idea with Marvel that, hey, maybe rather than focus on PC VR, why don't we go all in on PlayStation VR and make this a marquee title for that platform, which as a consumer, I just fell in love with the moment that I got mine in October of 2016, playing Res Infinite and Job Sim and you know, eventually also made the great titles that came out on that platform. Even though maybe from a technology perspective, it isn't as impressive as like the Vive that we were using at the time, or the Oculus Rift to develop Iron Man VR. Just the fact that it was easy to set up, relatively speaking, right? It didn't have to do lighthouses and stuff like that. I could sit from my couch and play. So, but we knew that it was going to be a challenge. And one of the major challenges that we knew that we had to smash, and Skiva, you alluded to this earlier, was the tracking and the fact that the PlayStation VR only has that one camera that you sit, you know, above or below your TV. And with Iron Man VR, we wanted players to have full 360 movement, which meant that players oftentimes would occlude or block the move controllers for the camera to see it. So you kind of, in some ways, lose a lot of the tracking. So how do we still retain the vision of the game while having to work within these kind of technical and hardware constraints? And that was one of the top 10 challenges for that title, for sure.
Well, I think it's pretty safe to say that you nailed it somehow, right? You know, those controllers, I felt, you know, most games I played on the PlayStation VR, I felt like there was always something missing with the controllers. There's no thumbsticks, right? There was right. issues with the tracking and you know, if you had any reflective surfaces in the room and that the camera could see and things like that. But these controllers, for some reason on Iron Man, just felt right. You know,
what did you do?
Yeah, what kind of black magic is this?
Yeah, the team developed some black magic that took advantage of the accelerometer and some kind of predictive algorithms to try to because we had a general sense of what the player was meaning to do even though we got limited inputs at times when they were blocking the camera. And so that was, I mean, years of development and trying to make it work and going down a lot of wayward paths that didn't pan out for us. But that is really the nature of VR development. I mean, it's the nature of game development in general, but especially with VR. And that's why, you know, publishers like Sony or Oculus and others, I think they understand that. It's like kind of part of the nature of VR, and it's why it's exciting and fun to work in VR, but it's why it sometimes takes more time to develop this content, because you're just, the rule book is just so thin compared to what you have like on a flat screen game, right? Yeah. And so it was just a lot of development focus on that and trying to realize that full experience that we wanted players to have on that hardware. And it was a very, very, very challenging project that you know, took a lot out of me and the team, which seems like a recurring theme here. But yeah, you know, we're passionate game developers and we just want it to be awesome.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, the game was a PlayStation VR exclusive. Was it like, did you know that one day it would end up getting onto another platform, or like when you developed it and released it on the PlayStation, like at that time, was it like supposed to be a PlayStation game?
Yeah, Iron Man VR was meant to be just exclusive to PlayStation VR, and that was it. That was all the discussions that we had. And so we just put everything we possibly could into it. You know, for players and who purchased the game on PlayStation VR, especially in the first months, will probably remember that the game was delayed a handful of times. Some of them were our fault. Like, we thought we'd be done and we needed some more time, and Sony was super gracious to give us more time. But one of the big reasons that we had to delay was also because of COVID hitting right as we're going to Gold Master. I think it was within like a week or two of us delivering our Gold Master disc is when COVID hit, and it hit in Seattle. It was the first area, if you guys remember, when in Kirkland, Washington, with the first case of COVID in North America, right down the street from us. And everything screeched to a halt for us. And so, we needed to kind of rethink how we're making games, shift everybody to remote, which we're doing so much. Everybody's doing that right now. But in March, April 2020, this was speaking of not having a guidebook or a roadmap, like, well, how do you do this, right? So we went in there thinking this is the platform, this is the only platform, and we're going to make it as good as humanly possible. And the game came out, and we were, I think, happy with a lot of the reviews, but disappointed by some of them as well, which was tough for some of the people on the team.
Mm-hmm. So how does it manage to make its way over to the Quest after not initially making any plans to do that?
Well, we put it all in the field, as they say, right? And a number of months go by because we shipped in the summer of 2020, and we're starting to shift towards our next project. We're working with Oculus on a big title, and which we're continuing to do right now.
Cool.
And so we're back in VR, which is awesome. And we were exploring lots of different ideas, but I think the team, generally speaking, we decided to jump back into VR again, really out of mainly the guidance I received from some local video game developer CEOs that they came and visited us right before the pandemic, and they played Iron Man, and they're asking me what Camouflage is going to do next, and I said, well, we're interested in doing some more PC, maybe try console. And these guys cornered me and said, why would you do that? Why would you go into this red ocean with all of us, with your team that hasn't shipped on, hasn't shipped a PS5 or an Xbox Series X game or whatever, and where you're doing amazing things on VR, why don't you guys double down on VR and become masters of VR? And I really took that advice to heart. I explained that to the team. I think they got it as well. I'm like, we got more that we want to do in VR, and we feel like we've just learned so much that we can apply those learnings to the next title. And so that's what we've been doing for a number of years. And then the Game Awards and the PSVR Without Parole and so many other outlets started doing their end of the year kind of awards ceremonies for 2020, and we were really pleasantly surprised how much positive reception we got on Iron Man VR for PlayStation VR, which I think I didn't know at the time, but I think set the stage for us bringing the game to Quest 2, even though the game lay dormant for a long time, and we thought it was over, right? We thought we were done. But then a gentleman from Oculus Studios messaged me, and this, relatively recently, of looking back at my timeline, and said, hey, it's been a year or two maybe since you worked on Iron Man VR for PlayStation VR, but what do you think about bringing it to Quest 2? There might be a path here. And that's a whole other story. But the game laid dormant for a long time, actually. Wow.
I'm wondering if there's when you initially plan to have a game come out as an exclusive for one console, is there a statute of limitations on something like that? Or when you realize you want to send it to another console, is there a bunch of bureaucratic red tape that you have to cut through to be able to get to a decision where everyone is okay with that kind of thing?
Yeah, every title's different. Every title's got a different kind of business arrangement. And when we developed Iron Man VR for PlayStation VR, it was really Sony's title. It was a Sony published first party, second party title. And but these contracts are written by human beings, right? Who can talk through and can be convinced to try something different and kind of deviate from the path. And so that I wasn't privy to the moment to moment on this, but it was pretty cool to hear that Marvel, Sony, and Oculus, Meta are talking about how can we bring this game to another platform, to Quest 2. And because I never thought that was going to happen. I never thought we would have a second shot at the game. Mm-hmm. And we're so happy that they afforded us the opportunity, which we should talk about the work that we put into the Quest 2 version. But I was so happy to have that opportunity to go back to it.
Oh yeah, everyone else is so happy too. A lot of people got their introduction to VR from the PlayStation VR, but a lot of people didn't. Most people got their introduction to VR via the Quest. And given some of the limitations of the hardware of the PlayStation VR 2, it almost seems like it would just work better as a Quest game, better tracking and more buttons and thumbsticks if you want them and all that kind of stuff. So when you realize okay, boom, we're ready to go. We're bringing this thing to the Quest 2. This is awesome. and you start that development process or that porting process, was there like all these moments where you guys are like, oh, sweet, oh, thank God, oh, this works better, or that works better, or was it still pretty challenging to make it happen?
Very much the latter.
Yeah.
Very challenging because you when you sit down and you think about it for 30 seconds, you think, okay, you've got more advanced tracking. The touch controllers are great, right? And no disrespect to the PlayStation Move controllers, but they were designed actually not even for VR in mind originally, right?
Right. PS3.
Right. Yes. Yeah. They're PS3 accessories, and again, Sony, all credit goes to them to take that technology and the PlayStation Eye technology and a great headset and shipping the PlayStation VR and bringing it to millions of users is awesome. But these touch controllers were more modern. The hardware, the Quest 2 has got a solid state drive, which is exciting for us because the PlayStation 4 didn't have that. And for a lot of other reasons we'll go into, like these advantages of the Quest 2 made us excited, but then you got to weigh that with the fact that I don't know, we shipped on this kind of heavy PS4 with it's got a lot of CPU and GPU power, and then you kind of weigh that with the lightweight of the Quest 2 with a mobile chipset, and how the heck are we going to make this game look great on this mobile device when we put everything we thought we could to into the PS4 version? So I think the visuals and the graphics, I think, were the main source of concern for the team at the beginning of development.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine that having a past working in VR, but also working on mobile chipsets must have been quite an advantage to you and your team, knowing ways to optimize for mobile. So I would think, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that was a blessing having all of that experience working on mobile games in the past.
Yeah, that's very insightful, Steven. That's exactly the narrative. I can't say any better the way you put it. So our experience really helped us with that, and we kind of rolled up our sleeves. Initially, we surveyed the team at the beginning of development. We asked them, "Do you think this is possible for us to deliver a great looking Iron Man VR on Quest 2?" And I think the majority of the team came back and said that they're extremely dubious of our prospects to be able to execute on that level. But through the hard work of starting at the beginning was our engineering team, just working towards getting the game to work on the Quest 2 and getting it to run. And now it looks awful. It looks like a nuclear winter, and it's all just no textures are firing, frame rates horrible. But we got something working here. And then we get excited because, the touch controls are working really nicely. The load times are really suspiciously short here, thanks to the SSD. We thought they might get worse over time, but they never did. They were just amazing throughout all of development. The lenses are sharper and clearer. So even though the art was not looking great, I forgot just like how much different that just like looking at UI compared to PSVR and Quest 2, right? There's a big difference. And then it was just a slog, just like fighting through to bringing up all these visuals to a level that is performant on Quest 2, but still looks good. A lot of tricks, a lot of optimizations that as you mentioned, Skiva. And really led up by a gentleman named Matt Walker on the production side, who was originally working at Capcom. I knew him for many years, and he came on to join Camouflage full time, led that project, working with very talented people within Camouflage, but a big help from another developer that you guys might be aware of called Endeavor One. They shipped Arashi, which is a samurai kind of ninja game on PlayStation VR. They've been in VR longer than we have, and they were able to put their team on this project and help us ship the game on Quest 2. Without them, I don't think we would have been able to do it.
You know what I think has the best of both worlds and then some? Maybe potentially a PlayStation VR 2, right? Ooh. Like that's got the power to give you some good visuals.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about the PlayStation VR 2? Maybe a PS5 version of the game or something like that?
Oh, I'd love to see the game come to the platform. I wish it was my decision to make, but I've got my PSVR 2. I'm assuming we're going to talk about it a little bit, but I've got it on reserve. Looking forward to it arriving on Friday this week.
So exciting!
Can't wait. I think the game would look and run beautifully on that hardware, but as of right now, we just finished the Quest 2 version, and then working on our main title, which will be coming out in Quest 2 as well.
That's another Quest 2 title.
Nice.
So I am wondering, which I don't think we got yet to, Sony, you took the game to them and you're like, yo, we're the guys to make this thing. But did you ever hear from Marvel about like what they thought about the Iron Man game? Like, did they reach out to you, or were you in contact with them, and like, did you work with them on things?
Yeah, we worked very, very closely with Marvel. In fact, I think, in many ways, we worked more closely with Marvel than on Sony on a day-to-day basis because of just the very rigorous approval process. And we worked so closely with them just to get every asset approved, but also to collaborate with them on the creative level, like Bill Roseman on the story side of things and the design, with like Mike and the guys. We worked super close with them, and I just love those guys as like brothers and sisters. That's and so even after we shipped the game, we still stay in touch, go on walks with Jay Young, who runs Marvel Games, and we talk about working together again. And we've got a very, very strong relationship. So when that opportunity to bring the Quest 2 title, to bring Iron Man VR to Quest 2 came up, it wasn't like, hey guys, it's been years, you remember me? It was, we already had continued that strong relationship that we've had with that group.
Oh, that's awesome. So you got the homies over there at Marvel. You're working on a new game coming to Quest 2. Is it maybe from the Marvel universe potentially?
I wish I can't wait till we could talk about what we're building next. I hope you guys will invite me back next, and we'll go real deep on that game. It's going to be really cool, and the team is doing a fantastic job. And it's not just, I get excited about this title, just like I do lots of other recent VR releases and upcoming VR releases, because now we're getting more at bats, to borrow a baseball reference. Developers are getting more swings at the plate when it comes to VR, and every single swing at the plate you get more experience. And we're not in that kind of like undiscovered country trying to figure out how does this stuff even work, right?
Yeah.
And so what you'll see with our title and other future titles from Oculus Studios and otherwise is that, the language of VR, the technology of VR is starting to kind of settle, and that's a really good thing. And now we can focus on making great content, really.
So you go from making a Sony exclusive to the game slowly shifting over and being able to be made for the Quest 2. And then somehow Camouflaj gets acquired by Meta. Yeah, can you? Yeah,
it's been a busy last year or so, right?
How does something like that come about?
Well, where do I start? But maybe I should start back at 2016, 2017 when we brought Republique VR to Gear VR and Quest Go, or Oculus Go. And like I said, we just loved working with the Oculus team there. Chris Pruitt and Aaron Davies and Chris Serra. They treated us so well, like better than any publisher had ever treated us. And I was like, we got to work with these guys again. But I had to put that in the back of my mind as we focused on what we had to do in the immediate. But once we were getting close to wrapping up Iron Man VR, as I mentioned, we started working with them again, and it was awesome. And they continued to just treat us so well. And you just kind of like have to like knock on wood and think like, is this like real? Are these guys for real, the way that they treat us? And it was. And so as we're developing the title and then Oculus Studios are starting to bring on more external teams into the family, right? So they have Senzara, they have the Ready at Dawn, they have Downpour, they have Big Box, right? And that's right around the time that they asked if we'd be interested in joining the family to be acquired to join the larger group. And at the time, I really wasn't sure, guys, because you remember why I started Camouflaj, which is to be able to kind of call the shots.
Yeah.
And run an independent shop and not have to worry about the bureaucracy. And you remember the last time I worked at a big company? It didn't go very well. And so it took a lot of kind of soul searching for me, many, many months. And poor Matt Walker, who I mentioned, we share an office here in Japan, and he would hear from me every day, where on a Monday, I'm like, I think we should do this. I like these guys. It makes so much sense. Like, why don't we just fully commit to VR for from now until the end of time? And then the next day, Tuesday, I come in the office. I'm like, nope, not doing it. Independence is too valuable, right? Or, you know, we're getting hit up by all these other, because this was a major, if you guys remember, there was a major season of consolidation and acquisition activity, late 2022, or late 2021, and then throughout most of 2022. Yeah. So we were getting we're getting knocked on the door by many other companies for acquisition. And so, yeah, it kind of led me to eventually get on a call with Jason Rubin, and we talked, and we had known each other for years. And the way he described what they want to do at Meta with their metaverse push, with Oculus Studios, the people we'd be working on, the types of projects we'd be doing, the way they were going to treat us, he made a very compelling pitch. Because for me, it's not about money. It's about how can we realize our true North Star of creating high quality, meaningful games. And now for VR, it's so important to us. Our DNA is about VR, really. And it made all the sense in the world. So I moved forward with doing that. And we announced it at Connect in October of last year. It's hard to believe.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's definitely a big deal. And I hope it's been going well.
It's been going fantastic. I can't, you have to take everything I say with a grain of salt, right? Because I'm now at a big company, and sometimes now I have to be a little more careful with what I say. Yeah. I'm speaking from the heart that it's gone better than I thought it was going to go. And I thought it was going to go good. I thought it was going to go really well because, again, we know these guys. We know their values. We know what they're about. So I knew what I was getting into, I thought. And now on the inside looking out, I'm like, this place is awesome. Like, we work with so many good people. You should have on the outside, you can see the company has its fair share of ups and downs, but you've got an amazing group of people that desperately care about VR, that desperately cares about the customer, desperately cares about this hardware and the software. And we just feel like right at home and super energized every day to really push everything to the next level. Yeah. I mean, there's duality in basically everything is something that I've come to realize in my life. Mm-hmm. Like, even the best situations in the world have a dualistic nature to them. Like, there's something that sucks about it. Like, it just wouldn't be anything if it didn't have some kind of duality to it. So, while, a lot of times, like, we can be pretty critical of Meta on our show, because we're like consumers, so we're like getting all the trickle down for the most part, and like, but I do always give credit where it's due. Like, I understand how huge and amazing the Quest has been and Meta's contributions to the VR space, and I support them fully. As a result of that, I buy all the devices. I talk about all their stuff, their games on my show all the time, so we're definitely supporters. We don't approve of everything that the company does, but, as a whole, we are supporters of what's happening here. But I'm wondering, like one of the more recent things that kind of has happened in the scene is Ready at Dawn's Echo VR getting pulled offline. And, basically Bosworth being the one that's like, yeah, it was me. Like, I made the decision to do this, as a guy who runs and owns one of the companies that's been acquired by this company. Like, do you have any thoughts that you can share with us about when that happened? Like, were you like squirming in your chair a little bit when you saw that go down, or anything like that? I looked at that thinking, I'm glad that there was a lot of internal conversations about it. I don't think that was a decision made in a vacuum. Yeah. Because one of the things I feel, and one of the many reasons why I'm so happy within Meta as part of Oculus Studios, is that I feel really, really respected as a studio head and as a creator. And so, hey, we want to do this cool thing with our Iron Man VR. What do you think, Ryan? Are you cool with it? And I didn't know what to expect, right? Because technically speaking, they don't have to ask me to do anything. I'm a full-time employee at Meta, right? I'm not running the show, right? I don't have some kind of contract that says I get final approval on anything anymore, right? And so what I really value, and what I can't really speak to that example in particular, Alex, but what I do know is, like, it's a conversation. A lot of pros and cons are weighed with any major decision, and I'm just glad that they're not made in a vacuum. And it's one thing I really respect and love about just being able to do the work that we do, that we are consulted for that kind of stuff. That's awesome, dude. This has like really been like, I don't know, this is almost like a movie or something for me, Like, I feel like there's been such a beautifully chronological conversation that has like really helped us get to know you and like understand kind of from the guys who's pulling the strings, who's making stuff happen from that perspective. It's
really, really awesome. I appreciate you being so like open and forthcoming about like what it's like to do all of this stuff and explaining kind of some of the intricacies and, you know, answering that question, which I was like, should I ask this? Okay, let's ask it. You know, like I appreciate that a lot. But I am wondering, is there anything that like we haven't really like touched on or gotten to that you think is really important that we should mention, whether or not it's about Camouflaj or Iron Man or VR in general, or, you know, something interesting that you've been thinking about lately? I just want to give you an opportunity to kind of bring something that you think is worthwhile to the conversation before we wrap
thanks,
it up.
Alex. And first of all, I feel bad because, like, you know, I know that you guys generally like to make more of a conversation, and it's been kind of like a very chronological history.
I'm here for it. This has been really interesting, Ryan. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, this is all stuff we genuinely want to know. This is great.
I super appreciate you guys' interest. It does mean a lot to me. But yeah, selfishly, I was like super excited because I could talk about VR all day, every day. I'm like, ooh, I get to talk to Skeeve and Alex for like an hour and a half just about VR or just in general, just like geek out about what's going on right now, what the history has been, what the future looks like. Maybe we need to find another time to talk.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, let's do it again. And because I just love this space. I love what you guys do. I think what we're doing on the VR front is so important, and I think it's worth celebrating. And speaking of celebration, the one thing that we're doing right now that some of your listeners or viewers may have noticed is we put out a new trailer for Iron Man VR a week or two ago. It was like an accolades trailer, which is a little bit late to the party, I'll admit. The game came out in November, and we're just now putting out an accolades trailer. But the reviews were really kind of trickling in for the title over the several weeks and months after the game shipped. And I got to tell you, like, the kind of the award season for 2020 was a big jolt of positivity and like affirmation for Camouflaj, I think, in terms of what we're able to do. But this season, like seeing just how incredibly strong the reviews have been for Iron Man VR and Quest 2 in particular, like completely blew us away. I'm sure you guys are familiar with like VR Game Critic, the aggregate site for VR reviews. Mm-hmm. Last I checked, I think we're the 5th highest Quest 2 reviewed title ever. Wow. Which is incredible. So all credit goes to my development brothers and sisters at Camouflaj, the guys at Endeavor One, our partners at Oculus Studios, Marvel, and Sony for making this all happen. So I just want to encourage anybody and everybody who's got Quest 2s and PlayStation VR to check out the game. We desperately care about this title. We want to deliver that pure Iron Man superhero fantasy of combining, like, you know, the suit and the superpowers with what you can do in VR, and also tell a compelling story about Tony Stark. So we're really, really proud of it. We're so happy that you guys played it and loved it. And it's a good time for us right now.
Top 5?
And well deserved.
Like, what are the other, like, I don't feel like we could almost just rattle off the other 4, you know, like, you know what, Beat Saber, Job Sim.
Beat Saber. See, in terms of actual reviews, maybe? I think we're at an 88 aggregate, which is super high, but there's a couple that are higher than us. Is Tetris Effect up there? I think they might be beating us like 89.
Tetris Effect is
2,
good.
I think, is tied. I think they're 80, 89. Red Matter 2 is very high up there too.
And now we're already spilling out of the top 5. Like, that's crazy. Wow. That's a really awesome ranking to have on something that's like considering all the VR games out there.
Yep. And to our listeners, I don't know that you need any further reason to go out and get this game, but I will tell you that as a Marvel fan, I've been a Marvel fan since I was a little kid. I've watched every Marvel movie on release day. I've read so many comics. I've played Marvel games since the NES all the way up till today.
Nice.
And it was a dream being able to truly feel like I was Tony Stark and I was hopping into the Iron Man suit. Like me, I felt like I was Iron Man. Yeah. It was just such one of the most amazing experiences that I've had in VR to date. So thank you and your team. For
do you remember when you first played Iron Man and like where you're out there on the lagoon and you?
Oh yeah.
Were like, okay.
Yep.
Pull the triggers. These are your thrusters. Whoa! You go up. Do you remember that moment?
I remember.
We worked quite diligently.
I remember. I even like I have an 8-year-old daughter, and at that time she was probably 6 going on 7 or something, and And, you know, she saw what was happening on the screen. And she's like, Dad, you Iron Man right now? She's like, let me see this. Put the headset on, and she's like, just blown away. I'm like, give me that back. It was just, super cool. Oh, just an amazing, amazing experience. This is what VR is made for, right? To be able to be something that you can never be because it doesn't exist. But like, you know, it's just like, I just can't say enough good things. Thank you to you and your team. You did an incredible job. Really did.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, a lot of credit to a lot of people to help realize it. But, you know, we fought hard, man. Like some of the stuff that we're doing in that game, not easy to do. Like even the stuff you kind of take for granted, like the full arm IK arm tracking that we do. Mm-hmm. We thought it was so important to not just have the Iron Man gauntlets floating out there in the world, but that you could see your whole arms with your missiles, your auxiliary weapons. You look down, you see the arc reactor. So it's so important that, because that's one of the first things that people do, by the way, when they go to that lagoon before they lift off, they like look down and they see the arc reactor, they see their whole Iron Man armor, like from like, you know, their neck all the way to the tips of their fingers. I'm Iron Man. This is awesome. It's that wish fulfillment you're talking about, Skiva, which I think is one of the best things about VR, right?
It is. It really is truly amazing.
That's beautiful.
Yep.
I really love it. Ryan, like seriously, man, it has been an honor having you on the show. You know, you have been involved in the games industry for a long time. You've made huge contributions to some of the most popular IPs in the world, and you just keep doing it. And to just be able to get to know you better, like learn your history, like from you and dive into all of it has been an absolute blast, man. It's really been great having you on the show, and we really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you so much to your awesome audience too for their passion, what they bring to VR. It's such an incredibly important component of what we all do. Because at the end of the day, we're making games so people play them and they enjoy them. So yeah, thanks guys for having me. Hopefully we can do this again sometime soon, so that I can pepper you guys with a bunch of questions about where do you think VR is going, what excites you, what do you think about PlayStation VR 2. All the other good hardware that's coming out. We have it's a really, like you guys start your show off with oftentimes, which is like, it's a good time to be in VR.
It is. It really is. Yeah, dude. And like, you know, now that we've been able to like, you know, we needed to learn about you. There's just no way around that. Yeah. Like we needed that history. We needed to hear it from you. But now that we've got that out of the way, next time you come on, we'll talk about your current project, and then we'll start peeling away layers, and we'll see if we can get to something juicy down there. Ryan, Payton, thank you so much, man. Founder of Camouflaj, crushing it out there in the VR world. It's been an absolute pleasure. Until next time, we say goodbye. Everyone say goodbye to Ryan.
Thanks, everybody.
Ryan.
Bye, Ryan. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
And he is gone. And he is gone. Just like that. Wow. Pretty rad, dude.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That was a great episode. That was so much fun.
It was awesome.
Absolutely so much fun. As a Marvel fan, as an Iron Man fan, as a VR fan, and a fan of Camouflaj, and it was just great.
As a fan of video games. Just in general. Like obviously, like we're lucky that a guy like him has gotten into the VR world and now is making amazing stuff. But like, you know, who hasn't heard of these franchises that he's been involved with, you know? And like
if they haven't, they've been living under a rock or something.
Seriously, everybody knows who Iron Man is now. You know, like it's even bigger than Halo and what is that? Metal Gear and all that.
Yep.
But yeah, this was really good. And thank you all for watching this bonus pre-recorded episode of Between Realities. We are going to be back and live very soon for our almost last episode.
I think it will be the last episode by the time this.
Oh, by the time this comes out. Yeah, the next episode will be our season finale of season 6. 3 years of Between Realities, 6 seasons. I guess we do 2 seasons a year. Sounds like that's the way it works.
Yep.
And we are inviting you, yes, you, to come and join us on the show. So if you are interested in joining us for our community episode as our season finale of Between Realities, we would love to have you join the Discord. Link is in the description below, and we'll probably have like a channel or something set up, so that way people can get in touch with us, and we can arrange to have you come on as a guest and join us, and we'll have a bunch of people on, and we'll chat with anybody who wants to come up, and it'll go for as long as it has to go, and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, the finales are always a good time. Good stuff. Maybe that's why we've gone through so many seasons in 3 years, so we can get to the finales.
Just get to the finales. Yeah, that sounds good to me. And that's happening the next episode. Yep. So hit us up, everybody.
All right. Well, awesome, man. This was so cool.
That was it, right? That's that?
That's that.
That's that. We'll see you on Friday with everyone. Have a good one.
Bye-bye, everyone.